Hi everybody, we're back today to do another art journal, and I was thinking after yesterday's art journal that I was really more focused on the art and less focused on the writing, but the writing is also really important too. Not only is it important for you to become a better writer by practicing, but it's also important because journaling, there's a lot of evidence that journaling can actually help you feel less stressed. It's kind of like talking to a friend, but really you're talking to yourself through your paper, through your journal. So today I prepared my pre-writing. So I did my brainstorming on today's prompt, and then I sat quietly and I did all my actual writing. And you'll see that in this draft it's not perfect. There's things that I scratched out and wrote over because I can correct that when it's time for me to do my good draft inside of my art journal. And again, I'm using my sketchbook that I have, but like I said before, you can use anything that you have. Regular notebook, just like the one that I showed you a minute ago, like this, that I actually got this at the dollar store for my son for his online learning, and I just borrowed it today to do the journal entry. My focus for today is I'm going to really try to use only recyclable materials for my art journal, so things that hopefully we all have in our house. So what I brought my markers. So inside this bag are all my regular markers. So there's thin tips, conical tips, some of them I think even might have fancy tips, I don't know. It's a big bag of all my markers. I also brought some of my artist pens, so you might not have artist pens, and that's okay, but they're kind of like having your Sharpies, and I know a lot of you have Sharpies, and I like these because they have a variety of nibs, like so the tips, so some of them are really fine and some of them are thicker. And I also brought my big permanent marker that I like it how it has the that type of a tip, the chisel tip. I like it because then I can do really thick lines, or I can do thinner lines with it as well, and it will show up well. I've also brought my glue. I brought my twine because most of us have string, twine, yarn, anything like that in our houses, I think, if you really look. I brought a piece of styrofoam that I took out of my recycling, and I just cut it so that it's rectangular, so I'll be ready to go with that, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that in a little bit. Tape is always handy, especially if you don't have glue. Scissors, pencil, pen, and I prepared, I cut out some pictures from magazines that I thought that I might like to use. I also brought that takeout bag that I showed you yesterday because I plan on ripping this up and using it as part of my background. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to carefully unglue the bag. So I'm starting at the bottom. It's okay if it rips a little bit. You can see mine ripped a little bit. And then I'm going to look for that other seam. I see the seam here. I got the bag open pretty well, and I'm going to choose a piece of paper to use for inside my journal. Now the cool thing about art journals is that sometimes it's really nice to actually work on both sides of the paper, because if you're like me and you really love doing the art, but you know that the writing is also really important, you might not be able to fit all that writing on otherwise. So today I think I'm going to maybe try to do both. Let's see what I end up doing. But I think today I'm actually going to start on this side, which is actually the back of yesterday's. Okay? So let's see how this goes. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball my measuring. I definitely don't want this, but this could come in handy later or something. So I'm just going to rip this off. Okay, and I'm going to save that because this could look really cool later on. Also, I don't think I want this in my book, so eventually I'm going to either rip that off or cut that off. And let's see here. Yeah, I think I'm going to pretend like it goes this way. And I'm going to I think I'm going to cut on this seam here. I kind of like this seam, and I think I'm going to use this along the outside edge of my paper. I don't know if you can see the seam, but it's one of the fold marks where the bag had been folded before, so it's a nice line for me to be able to cut along that line. This ripped off not too bad. Not too badly. Oops. Yeah, maybe I'll just leave it after all. But I'm just gonna rip the bag now because I don't want the full bag on there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bag almost along the seam. I don't think my paper is that long, so I'm going to just cut just above it. But again, I have that line, that fold mark. It's going to help guide me. I like that. I think I'm going to rip it a little bit more. Trying to give it a little bit of a wave because it was ripping so straight, which doesn't always happen, right? And I want it to have just a bit of that raw edge. I like that. And it gives kind of a nice textural feeling compared this paper compared to this paper. And I am going to glue this down on my book. It's always really important to get the glue along the edges because that's where they usually come up. The paper will come up. You don't need it as much in the middle, but sometimes I just like to do a little X. And then just try to line up your corners roughly. Try to keep it flush. And then just start with one edge and slowly just bring it over to the other edge. There you go. Just make sure it's really pushed down well, and that's looking pretty nice already. I'm kind of thinking at some point I'm going to want to add this twine, and I think it's going to look so nice, kind of something like flatten it out. And maybe glue it along there. Maybe even along the bottom will look cool. So I have my pictures that went along with the prompt that we posted in the Google Classroom if you're part of our Google Classroom. If you're not, that's okay. You can use any prompt you like. So, ooh, it's pretty nice. Might rip it a little bit more. Might even want to add that back and have like a little stripe there. That looks kind of cool. Maybe even make it lower. I'm gonna rip a little more. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to the top of my page. Again, really try to focus more on the outside edges, but you can put a little bit in the middle. Again, I'm really trying to keep the outside edges kind of flush with the paper. And one thing that I do is I just kind of feel it. I feel the edge, feel it with my finger there, and then slowly we're just going to work it over. That helps so that it doesn't get wrinkles in it. But if it gets wrinkles, that's okay. It just adds to the homemade aspect of it, which is what people really like about art, is that it's not perfect. Here's that piece that I just ripped off. I think I'm going to add that there. I think that will look really cool. So for the planning of the art, I really tried to just think about the theme of the prompt, and then once I started choosing my images and my papers, I just kind of wanted to keep a similar color scheme. You know, we've talked about colors in class, and I just wanted to keep some of the colors looking similar. Okay. I also cut out this cool alarm clock. I think I'm actually going to cut that right out. I love the colors on this alarm clock. It really has that look of the sun shining in through the window in the early morning. Early morning light can be so beautiful, especially if you're not overtired. So during this time of social distancing, it's really important that you're trying to stay healthy and get a good amount of sleep, especially as teenagers. You're all still growing. It's a really important time for your growth. Also, by getting enough sleep, it's keeping your immune system strong, so that you know, if you do get exposed to any kind of viruses, regardless of what they are, your body will be able to better fight them off. Cutting out my alarm clock here. It's looking so cool. All right. I hope you can all see this. You'll notice when I'm cutting, I always also turn the image that I'm cutting. I don't just try to use the scissors to cut. I also turn the paper. It helps you get all the right angles, so that you can get a pretty nice cut going on. Okay. I don't know where my X-Acto knife is to cut all that out, so I might just leave that. I looked for my X-Acto knife and I couldn't find it, and not everyone has an X-Acto knife anyway. And it kind of goes along with the brown. I think that could look pretty cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to put that down here in the bottom corner. And for these little bits like the feet on the clock, I usually just put it on my fingers. You have to be careful because sometimes those little pieces can rip off really easily. Okay, push it down, rub it in, and there you go. That's already looking pretty good already. Even this bag handle that I ripped off earlier, if I didn't want to use the twine, I have this bag handle. This bag handle could also look really cool. Might be harder for me to get straight. So what I've done is I actually already started heating up my hot glue gun. I know not everyone has a hot glue gun, so if you don't have one, don't sweat it, no big deal. If you have white glue at home, school glue, it will work. You probably will just need to put something to weight it on. If you have like clips or like a little rock, anything that's kind of heavy that would keep it down, that would be good as well. So I'm gonna go get my glue gun. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I grabbed my glue gun. I also grabbed these clothes pegs that I have since I'm sitting outside and they were right there. I was like, oh, how perfect. That will help me pin these down on my paper. So I'm gonna just use a little clothes peg, flip it down. It will help me keep it straight. Since I am working outside, I'm just actually gonna do some little dots. I don't think I need to do a whole line of glue. Just doing dots along the edge, pulling it down, flattening it out. I had my glue gun on low. I know some glue guns have those settings high and low. So it's not gonna hurt me right now when I'm pushing it down. If I had it on high, I would have just used my marker and pushed it down so that I wouldn't get burnt. And you'll notice I left my edge raw here. I love that. I think that looks really cool. Also adds a different little textural element. I'm gonna take that off because hot glue doesn't take a long time to dry. If you're using white glue, you definitely would want to keep it on and weigh that down because white glue is going to take longer to dry. All right, this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. The other thing I wanted to show you, I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's video, is that you can make stamps with foam. And so I was thinking I'm going to do that. So I'm going to use a pencil and I'm just going to push into the styrofoam and I'm going to make a leaf. Okay. It doesn't matter if you can't see the pencil showing up on it. All that you need is the indentation. I also have a pen here. The pen has a finer nib than the pencil tip, and I'm going to see if I can get a finer line using my pen for the veins of the leaf. Okay, I've made a little leaf. I'm going to cut that out. Don't cut on top of your indentations. You're going to need those. Okay, I have my leaf. But if you don't have paint at home, don't worry. We can use markers. So I got out the markers. I'm going to color all over this. And the colors are going to resist that foam. Get it all over there. And I'm going to put it on this side of the paper now. And look how cool that looks. And even you can use the leftover. It won't be as bright, but that will also look cool. See? I wonder if I can get a third one out of it. Let's see. Push it down. And lift it up. Yeah, look at that. I did. So I'm going to keep working on this journal entry. I think I might want to add a little bit of this blue paper maybe to over here just to bring that in, maybe to the bottom. Yeah, I think I'm just going to rip it. And just gonna fold it over so I have a little edge there so I know where I want to cut. Have a little bit of an edge. Use my scissors. And I'm gonna cut slightly above where I folded it, just slightly. And I'm going to glue that right there. Maybe up a little bit. What do you think? Maybe move it over? Yeah. I'm gonna cut that off. Okay. I'm gonna go into time-lapse mode so that you can see this get done really quickly. Be back soon.
We met, your eyes so blue, me piercing through. I can't forget the day we met, your smile so bright, it made me swoon. Our love is like a summer's day, hot and endless in a magic way. Whenever I see you, all I can think is my summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. My summer love, been waiting for you, my love. I can't forget the day we met. You looked so fly in your red Corvette. Your hair, your look, your everything. When I see it all, I knew that you were mine. I'm in love with your hair, your lips, your silhouette in the moonlight shine. With my love you won't ever be alone. My summer love, been waiting for you, my love. Completely a fool, been waiting for you, my love. Head over heels, I'm blinded by what I feel. My love is forever yours.
Okay, so I'm pretty much finished the journal for today, my art journal, and this is the finished product. Okay, I really tried to focus on using materials that we have at home, simple materials, regular markers, glue, and recycled things that you can find in your house, whether it's twine, paper, foam, whatever it is. Figure out something and you'd be surprised at how creative you can be with just the things that you would find in your recycling. Happy writing, and if you have any questions, comments, or ideas or things you'd like to see, let me know and I will do my best to accommodate you. Have a great day, stay safe, stay healthy, and social distance. See you later.